Okay, Jewish versus white Caucasians. And at the end of the day, isn't everyone who's actually white, aren't they actually going to align themselves with the Jewish majority of 3 billion Jews? This is not another planet, and this is not some far future. There's 3 billion Jews today. That's how many people, that's how many Caucasians there are, and those are the Caucasians who will align with the Jews against whites. So I'm not pure white, and maybe it's not. It's foolish of me to always bet that the Jew is going to be the worst hypocrite, because the pure white man is also going to be a hypocrite. But the pure white man, the pure white man has got his back to the wall. There's a huge majority of Jewish Caucasians who are also hypocrites, and they're both refusing to accept the segregation that is the freedom to segregate, the freedom to self-segregate into enclaves, and that's the only protection that the Chinese and the Africans would have. Now, the African leader, he's partially Caucasian, isn't he? Paul Kagame, he said, we're afraid of being left behind. And that's one reason why some Africans and some Chinese don't want the freedom to segregate, because they are afraid of falling behind in terms of technology progress and various other forms of education. And I don't know if that's a reasonable fear or an unreasonable fear. However, the freedom to segregate is under threat primarily because of Caucasians having more demand for Asians as receptive partners and Africans as receptive partners. And only a small elite among the Caucasians ever have the opportunity to have Asians as receptive partners, and that means Chinese. It doesn't mean South Asians, because South Asians are Caucasians. When you say Asian, that means Chinese. So most of the Caucasians men do not have the opportunity to have a receptive Asian partner or a receptive African partner. And so whites have usually more satisfaction, and that's why the lower IQ Caucasians are more jealous. And I know for a fact that I've been oppressed by Jewish men. And one of their sons is both of my brothers, and they had Jewish mother on one of them, and a Jewish father the other. And I didn't know it, but their fathers were always Sabbath. No, their Jewish parent, whether it's the Jewish mother or the Jewish father. One half brother has a Jewish father, and one half brother has a Jewish mother. And so the Jewish parent, they're very oppressive, and they're very jealous. And I can understand why they're very jealous of someone who is in the very highest percentile of Northern European brain volume. So anyway, I'm trying to go to the European Union so that I can get some freedom, because the Americans have been oppressing the hell out of me all my life, sabotaging the hell out of me. So I said, okay, you want to talk about the rules for sex? Let people segregate racially and then figure it out for themselves, instead of trying to make everybody conform to what the most horny, desperate, and brutal men want. Let everybody segregate, the freedom to self-segregate, and after people are free to disengage from each other, then you don't have to make the law be about the most brutal, desperate men, and the law can be different in a different place. So anyway, a father has sex with his daughter, and sometimes before the age of 2. Sometimes probably even before the age of 1. I don't know. Can he fit his pecker inside? If he's uncircumcised, there's a chance he might be able to, because he can make an attempt without a big he doesn't have to plan or smuggle a lubricant. If he's uncircumcised, he can try to he could probably have a better opportunity to have sex with his daughter in her pussy, even at the age of 11 months. If he's not circumcised, he's probably got a better ability to, a better chance of doing the deed. And so the father-daughter sex is the first step, hypothetically, and probably some fathers shouldn't have to be embarrassed about it if they started with their son because of a deprival of homosexuality rather than a deprival of heterosexuality. But many fathers start with their daughter, I think. Maybe fewer start with their daughter. And then after they have sex with their daughter in her pussy, theoretically, probably, then her brother asks, what is her father and daughter, what is her father, what is his father and what is his sister doing together that makes them so excited and makes them feel so happy? So then the father has to eventually do the same thing with his son. And that's more prevalent in uncircumcised culture. And in a circumcised culture, it's more difficult to get started. There's a bigger barrier for entry, so the children get older. And then the children have a traumatic memory of their father smuggling with a sense of anxiety and smuggling something strange, a lubricant, because he's circumcised. So he's got to have planned it, and he has to have a premeditated plan. So a lot of times it's traumatic for they both feel traumatized because it wasn't casual and it wasn't spontaneous. So then they remember that their father was anxious and that their father felt a sense of shame and despair at the loss of what was previously a purely sentimental relationship. Then it had become erotic in addition to sentimental, and then it became, because of the traumatic nature of it, that both of them felt like, well, wouldn't it be better if we could have not done that? And that's the problem with being circumcised, is it makes it traumatic to begin with. Anyway, so that's the point. If people are allowed to segregate and not be circumcised by these weird rabbis and the Caucasian majority forcing their religion, and it's really only helpful for Caucasians to limit their own birth rate because the Caucasians are so numerous, and they recruited me into paranoia about the African birth rate when the Caucasians are so numerous. They recruited me, oh my gosh, Africa is about to have 2 billion, 3 billion blacks. And if you look at it, the real situation is the last racially pure blacks are besieged by bearded African men who are bringing bearded genetics into the black African genome. And the last racially pure black Africans are under siege. And the African population is not so huge. But I did warn the Africans. I said, you're playing with fire if you approve of the African-American aggression, the rioting, and there's so many Africans in Europe. If you approve of their aggression, and there's so many Africans in London, there's so many Africans in Paris, and so many African blacks throughout Europe, if you approve of their aggression, you're playing with fire, because then Africa is going to lose their sovereignty on account of, for real. And there's a lot more to lose than they think that there is at risk. There's a lot more to lose, and they think that they're at risk of being told who's going to be their president. No, they're at risk of being invaded by rapacious Caucasians if the Africans cannot tell the African Americans to stop being so aggressive. There was no racial slavery. Nobody is a Native American. Native Americans have never, not one exists, and not one has ever existed. They're Pacific Asian Americans, and the Spanish brought them from the Philippines archipelago. There are no such things, no such people as Native Americans. There's never been such a people as Native Americans. And there's 3 billion Jews. Oh, look out. Okay, wait a second. I want to post this video on Facebook here.